I think everybody does, right? I think everybody, whether you're a producer and you have a bad day in the studio, or whether you're a rapper and you just can't write for shit one day. I think everybody has that experience. But again, it's the sum of your days, right? You're trying to just average out to be a better creator. And it's easier said than done, but you just always want to be pushing that average performance higher and higher and higher.
Prochaine station.
LOWKEY MTL.
Brady Jones.
What's up?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Good. So why is it Brady Jones?
What a way to start it. Okay, so I mean, a lot of people in radio, a lot of people in media in general have, I guess you'd call them stage names or professional names or whatever.
Yeah.
When I was working in Montreal in 94.7 Hits FM, it was Brad Jones, which is my real name. And then when I got hired at the new Hot 89.9 in Ottawa, I got an email from my boss saying, hey, look, your name's awesome, but is there a way that we can maybe sexy it up a little bit? And they gave me a bunch of suggestions. It was like Brad Kardashian was one of the suggestions. Dasher Jones. We kind of played around with different names. I was actually Bradlow, which is a nickname that a buddy of mine gave me in high school. I was Bradlow for a week on air, and it didn't feel right. And we were like, no, we gotta.
Is that for like the socials and stuff?
Yeah, so it's not just socials. It's just being more memorable, right?
Oh,
There's
right.
like,
Okay.
There's so much clutter, like with anything, like with music, like with advertising, like with anything. There's you want to cut through the clutter. You want to be memorable. You want to have a name that's going to be a little catchier. For example, on my show, we have two guys, Mahler and Rush, and they used to work on a radio station called The Bear. So every on-air person on that station had a bear themed name, right? We also have a girl named Race. Like there's a lot of that in the industry, and it's just to make yourself a little bit more memorable. So we ended up settling on Brady Jones, which is hilariously similar to my real name of Brad Jones. But it's funny because now that's just who I am in Ottawa on the market, and
For sure.
we broadcast across Canada now. So just like in the company, no one calls me Brad. It's even no one in Ottawa calls me Brad. Everybody calls me Brady. And then when I come to Montreal, my friends will ironically call me Brady. And when I'm in Ottawa, my friends will ironically call me Brad. So it's just like a weird double life.
Yeah, whenever I think of you, like I'm always like, is it Brady? Is it Brad?
I know, man. And when I was single, it was very confusing going on dates because girls had no idea what to call me.
Yeah.
You know, it was very funny.
So how did it all start? Like, how did you know that you wanted to go into radio? Like, you must have, because you've been doing it for a while, right?
Yeah, so I started when I was 16 years old. I started working in radio, but prior to that, I always liked attention, like a lot of kids, a lot of people. I always wanted to be on stage. I always wanted to be doing things. I remember my sisters were in ballet, and after their shows, I'd have to go up on stage. My parents would let me go up on stage, or I'd just have to do it. I have to go up on stage and do a little dance or whatever, and have my parents' attention.
To do it, or your parents?
I had to. I just I needed. They couldn't have all the attention that night. You know, I had to get up on stage too. And so I would, and they'd humor me, and I just always really liked that sort of stuff. Except the thing is, I had no discernible talent at all. So for me, it was talking. Like talking was the thing that I was somewhat good at, and so I was always drawn to that. I would always host things in high school, all the talent shows, things like that, and I was really involved in organizing all that stuff. And then in grade 11 at a job fair, I saw 94.7 Hits FM. They were looking for their street team called the Hit Squad. It was an unpaid position, and I was like, sick, I'm down, I'm in. I interviewed for it, got the job, and I was at that radio station for 8 years.
Were you doing like any kind of radio association at school?
No, so we didn't have that, but at our school, like the shit was our variety shows, our talent shows. That was like the thing, the event of the year. And
What school is it?
This is Beaconsfield High School.
Oh, okay.
And that was like, it was always like the big thing. And when I was in grade 8, usually it's the grade 11ers that are hosting. And all my friends in grade 8 were all in bands, and I played drums, but I sucked. So I wasn't in a band, and I wanted to be involved in the show. And I was like, fuck it, I'll audition to be a host. And I guess they thought I was just like the cute little kid, and they put me in with a bunch of grade 11ers. And then the next year was me and a bunch of grade 11ers, and then the year after that it was me and a bunch of grade 11ers, and then finally it was me and my friends. So it was I was always that, I guess, little annoying shit.
What did you do in the talent show?
I would just host. I would host the
okay.
show, yeah. Which was like it was a big deal at the time for me. And
so are you kind of doing like crowd work and stuff in that sense?
Yeah, a little bit for sure. We'd like actually plan out between, so we had all these acts, let's say it's 30 acts, and then we'd write them all down, and then I was like, okay, we need like, let's say 15 bits that we're going to do, 15 like skits, and then maybe some small jokes here and there, and then we maybe a little bit of crowd work. We're just sort of filling out a show, and that was actually pretty good training to not training necessarily, but it was a good introduction to what hosting is, and
yeah, it's like training without you knowing that it's training.
Exactly.
Okay.
It was just fun for me, and I think it came kind of natural, and then when I was thinking about what I wanted to do in my life, going into like medicine and all that stuff sounded awesome, and then math got hard, and then it was less awesome.
Yeah, it's a good reality check.
Yeah, exactly, totally. But talking and
so how did you know like you could do talking and you're good at talking? Like how do you figure that out?
I think I don't know. I was just a social kid. I was just the kid that never shut up, and now I'm the adult that never shuts up. It's just like kind of who you are, and I think
it's always interesting to me when like people figure it out so early. They just know, like.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I loved it, but I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to do it as a career. I didn't necessarily know if it was a viable career.
Right. Yeah.
And
so you're kind of just doing it more for fun, and then
yeah, exactly. And then I saw the opportunity, and I jumped on it, and I was really lucky to go to a radio station that I was able to grow at, and I was able to sort of.
Yeah, that's like that was like the coolest one. 94.7 was like the coolest one.
Yeah, so it recently got sold. It's now no longer. It's now a Christian rock station. They bought it for $2.5 million along with Wild Country 96.5. So kind of the end of an era. But that station, like I said, I was there for 8 years. I really developed there. And what's interesting about that radio station compared to any other station in Montreal is it's a border station. So it actually would broadcast out of Malone, New York. So just on the other side of the border, literally like, I think it's like 5 clicks from the border.
Right.
And it would target Montreal. But what that meant was it wasn't governed by the CRTC. It was governed by the FCC. So Hits never had to play any Canadian music. It could have advertisements in both French and English. Unfortunately, the signal wasn't as strong as most other stations in Montreal, but that was a huge competitive advantage to not have to play any CanCon. Most stations have to play 35%. So it was a huge advantage. So we got to play nothing but really cool music.
Is it still like that after they got bought?
No, so now it's a Christian rock station. So it's pretty interesting, at least for radio nerds like myself. It's this company. They're a nonprofit company, and they don't air any ads. But after every 2, 3, 4 songs, you hear a quick little 10-second spot where it just says, "Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Do you want to support the Christian arts community?
Yeah.
Donate at this website." And they're like a multi-billion-dollar company. And all they do is go into all these different markets and buy up radio stations. And then they just broadcast on them and ask for donations, and they don't pay any taxes. And it's like,
people,
yeah, it's one hell of a business model, man. Like they got it made, they got it going on. And I think their staff is like 40 or 50 people, and they might have, who knows, 300, 400 frequencies. It's like it's a massive, massive operation.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, like I'll get my conspiracy side out.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like there's some subliminal messages going on here.
It seems like they should pay taxes. That's what it seems like. It's a big company, man, to not be paying any taxes for sure.
Yeah, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Other than that, so like what do you start off in radio? Like when you go into 94.7,
yeah.
What's the first thing they put you into?
Yeah, so I started off and a lot of people do as an intern. So I was an unpaid intern. It was called Hit Squad, but every radio station has them. We call them a street team, and they're the people that go to events, and they're like the first point of contact for the radio station and the community. So you're at events, you're putting up banners, you're saying hi to people, you're giving out raffle tickets, you're handing out t-shirts, whatever it is. It's bitch work. That's essentially what it is, but it's a great way to get your foot in the door. And so many broadcasters have started out that way. And I know a lot of people that even not radio broadcasters, but are in other industries. Amanda Klein, who does news on, I want to say CTV. She's an anchor on CTV, and she started on the street team with me. And there's a lot of different people in the media industry that have started on various street teams. So it's a great foot in the door.
Is it always the same path? or is it
Not
is there,
necessarily.
like, so there's so many different ways of becoming?
Yeah, there's so many different ways. That's the path where you grind. I mean, you can get really, really lucky and just have a ton of talent. Someone's like, wow, I want to take you under my wing and train you. Right. But that's pretty rare. I think you usually have to grind your way up to the top. And especially now, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, as the radio industry and media industry in general starts to change and adapt, there's less opportunities to sort of do this slow build. There's less positions where you're going to be essentially training and honing your craft. So I think we can get into that.
I actually wanted to ask you for sure. Yeah. So like, it's more of like, because now you're seeing podcasts and like a lot of online things going on.
Exactly.
Even radio stations, there's like YouTube channels for them. And
totally. Yeah.
Like,
and digital content is a huge part of it. And so now for stations, we're kind of in this weird crossroads where there's not a ton of positions for up and comers in major markets. So there used to be the weekend guy, and you'd have an overnight guy. Mm-hmm. And even in a lot of radio stations, there's no longer an actual evening host. Now it's just a syndicated show. And that's where you used to put your younger talent, because it takes a long time to get good at radio. It really does. And most media and most things, whether you're a rapper, a producer, whatever it might be, it takes a long time, right? 10,000 hours. Yeah. And there's no longer that sort of training ground. And I think what's probably going to happen, this is a shift that we've only really seen in the last 3, 4, 5 years. But I think what it will probably happen is we're going to start looking at Instagram and TikTok and YouTube for the next sort of set of stars or the next sort of set of talent.
So I don't think we're quite there yet. People that already have a following and already have
exactly, or at least have those skills, those broadcasting and presentation skills to be able to transfer to radio. It's a lot harder to take someone who's super green, who's super like anxious around a microphone and turn them into a radio broadcaster. It's a lot easier to take someone who's already comfortable in front of a microphone, has at least somewhat of a following, a local presence, and then sort of mold them into a broadcaster.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I would say like podcasting is like similar to radio, but then as for like digital content, even if it's like something like taking up like highlights, because I know like the show, this also like now you're in Ottawa, right? You're in a different radio station, and you guys do pretty like funny ass shit on the show.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's like Howard Stern type stuff.
Yeah,
like,
we try to definitely like our social. Our social media is a big part of what we do as well. It's a marketing opportunity for us, right? It's a way to get new listeners, but it's also
is that demographic related to your like your radio,
like our on air?
Yeah, on air.
So we make 100% of our money on air. It's selling ads on air, right? That's 100% of what a radio station's income is. It's starting to change now. Now our sales reps sell billboards and stuff like that, but mostly what we do is we sell on air advertising, and so number one, the most important thing has to be get listeners, get people to listen to the radio station. So for example, people ask us all the time, why don't we have a podcast of our show? Why don't we put big long clips on YouTube every morning? And the reason for that is we want people to listen to the actual show. So we want to give them just enough on social media so they know kind of what's going on. They're keeping up with our show. They see our personalities. They see what's interesting and engaging about our show, but that's all to lead them to the actual product, which is the radio show, because that's where we make our money. We need those listeners there.
Money on like ads and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, we're a $20 million operation. Right. Maybe we'd make 50 grand on let's say Instagram or YouTube hits or whatever, which is like, that's great for one creator, right? Someone who's doing this independent, and there's not a huge team behind them, but like.
No, for me, it's more like diversifying like the streams.
Yeah.
So you're not only on. Like,
it's just such a small. It would be such a small part of it for us that it wouldn't really be worth it, right? It's expensive to advertise on radio, and we're fortunate to be in a good position in the market.
So the money that's coming in is not like the sales that you guys are.
So it's all commercials and like the live.
It's just all ads. Okay,
exactly. Okay. It's all the ads that you hear on air. There's a very, very small amount of our income is on web advertising. That's advertising on our website.
It gets complicated when you start showing numbers, when you have to mix like the web and like the
exactly
and all that stuff.
It's really like our bread and butter really it's the on-air advertising, and that number obviously took a hit during COVID, but it's really recouping pretty well right now.
So like, what's your argument when someone comes up to you and like, oh, like, radio's gonna die, like, you know, it's like
Yeah.
a typical argument, right? Like,
So radio has seen a decrease in listenership, but it's not nearly what you would think. This is prior to COVID, but 10 years prior to COVID, about 93% of the population was exposed to radio on any given day, or any given week, rather. Now, just prior to COVID, so let's say that was 2010. Just prior to COVID, it was at about 90% of the population. So it decreased, but it decreased by 3% during one of the most massive, or during the biggest massive digital change we've seen, right? There's a lot more options now on the dial. But I think that local content it's massively important for a population. Exactly. And it's also passive. Think of watching, you're more likely to watch Forrest Gump on TV when you see it on cable than picking it on Netflix, right? Because it's a great movie. It's on, it's convenient. Oh, I like this movie. And then you're just sort of sitting there and enjoying it. But are you going to actually pick it on Netflix? Maybe not. I think that's certainly a part of it as well. But I think the local part of it really can't be understated. It's also immediate too, right? If you want to hear what's happening, especially with COVID, a lot of people went to radio for the live current information that you might not be able to get on TV or your podcast or whatever else it
you'd like look at Twitter and that's like a whole different world.
Exactly. It's a whole different world, but it's also the personalities on radio. You kind of form a relationship with these people,
that's
right?
what I want to ask you about it. So you guys do notice that, like, where like people are invested in like the actual hosts,
big time. And that's really our bread and butter as a show. Is our show's been around for we've been number one in Ottawa for 15 years now. I've only been a part of it for the last 4 or 5.
What's the one in Ottawa now?
So now I'm on the new hot 89.9.
Right.
It's we're a top 40 CHR radio station, but our show we're the morning hot tub with Mala, Rush, Jenny, and Brady. There's 4 of us on the show, and we're essentially a talk show. So we play 4 songs an hour. And we talk for about 42 to 43 minutes.
Is that why you're doing like a bunch of crazy things?
Yeah.
Like,
so in that time, we try to do a lot of wild shit to try to generate interest in the show and just to make people laugh and to make people have a good time. We do a lot more stunts than other people. Yesterday I was in a coffin for...
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like you specifically, is that because it's kind of like a hazing? Like
it was, we kind of positioned it that way, but I'm also the young guy on the show. So because the show's been around for so long and has been so successful, we've almost... Our hosts have certainly not aged out of our audience, but they're getting older. You know, they're in their 40s now. They're later 40s as opposed to in their mid or late 20s or mid 30s when they first started this run.
Yeah, and see, like, so someone in their 40s, for example.
Yeah.
Right? So like their listener probably has been listening to them for like 20 years. You know?
For years and years
but
and
20
years.
years ago, like the radio was very common. And, like,
but our radio station is still targeting our prime demographic is women 18 to 34, right? So we're trying to hone in on that demographic. And yeah, we totally get a ton. Typically we're about 60-40 women men.
Okay.
So obviously we want to maintain that audience that's been with us for the last 15 years. But we also want to pick up the new audience that's coming in. And that's why they brought me in. It's because they wanted sort of a younger voice, they wanted a millennial. I'm the token millennial. And so I do a lot of the millennial shit. I went to Area 51 for the Storm Area 51 event.
Yeah, that was sick. How was that?
That was wild,
Did
man.
You get any snipers pointed at you?
There were so many cops. There were so many like army guys.
Just because of that situation?
Well, definitely at all times, but certainly because of that situation. I had to leave because of the time change. I had to leave Vegas at midnight to get to Area 51 at 2:30 in the morning to be able to broadcast, because I was broadcasting not just on our radio station but across Canada, doing hits on a bunch of different radio stations, and so I had to be at Area 51 by 2:30 in the morning to be able to broadcast on all these different radio stations.
It's just sketchy.
But while we're driving, man, at like 1:30 in the morning in the desert, so there's nothing. It's all flat, right? You can see for miles and miles and miles ahead of you. If there's a car coming, you see headlights. And I understand why people think they see aliens in the desert, because when it's flat like that, when you see headlights coming, it looks like there's like 8 headlights going across the like across your field of vision, and then it comes closer and it's just one car, because you could see so far in the distance because it's all just flat. Exactly, it just messes with your eyes. But we would see, myself and my engineer, we would just be driving in the middle of the desert, and then all of a sudden it's like 4 or 5 black unmarked SUVs passing you just out of nowhere, and they're all together all at the same time. You'd see that everywhere. I went right up to the gates at Area 51, and I think they sent their nicest officers or army guys or whatever they were to kind of like say jokes and stuff.
So they already have like a memo.
They definitely knew. Yeah. Big time. They big time knew. But you could not mess with them at all. One guy.
Just like go.
One guy just took a step over the line into Area 51.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still like miles away to get to the actual area, but
no-go zone.
He took a step into the no-go zone. They grabbed him by his arms and took him to the side, and basically to show everybody, don't fuck with us. All right. And they gave him a good scolding, sent him back, and no one went over. Honestly, it was a bunch of nerds. It was a bunch of influencers or quote unquote influencers. It was a bunch of people who just wanted to be a part of something online, and it was fun. It was really fun. A ton of drugs were consumed, not by myself. I was working, but it was literally yeah. But it was fun, man. It was certainly a really cool.
It makes me wonder, it just makes me so curious. Like, what the fuck is there? Like, what's going on with it?
Totally.
Like, why is
totally.
it so like?
It's so neat. I almost feel like it's so like everybody knows so much about it that there can't possibly be shit there. There's got to be something else.
It's almost like a decoy, right? Like
maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Why would they make it so publicly known to be like an area not to go?
But it is far. It is really in the middle of nowhere, and that tiny town just outside of it. The name escapes me right now. Rachel, Nevada. Okay. I think there's a population of 40, and they hated everybody that was there. Oh yeah, and they all have guns because they're in the middle of the desert. It was very American. It was very. It was an eye-opening experience, and I loved every second of it.
Where else did you go on that tour?
Really just Area 51. Yeah, it was just a quick fly in, quick fly out. But it was cool. I was on I think 15 different radio stations that day. On the show, my coworkers dared me to get on national American news. And so I was on MSNBC News.
How'd you do that? Like, you just waited?
I went up. I think there's sort of a mutual respect between media people, especially when you get to a certain level.
Do you have a media pass or something? Like,
no, but I think you kind of can tell when someone's been around for a little bit of time.
Camera,
exactly. And I went up and sort of chatted with this news crew, and I was like, hey, here's the deal. I'm broadcasting across Canada for radio, Stingray Radio. Could we do a hit here? And they're like, absolutely, I would love that. And so her name is Faith, awesome reporter. She was in Vegas at the time. Now she's doing national. And we chatted, and she got me on the news. So I just sort of ran by her, and then she pretended to stop me, and then we chatted. I chatted with the anchors back wherever they were broadcasting from in New York or whatever it was. And it was pretty cool. It was a really fun experience.
And you had a sign. I remember you having like a Area 51 sign that was made.
Yeah. So this blew up. I think I got like 4,000 followers in 24 hours. It just totally blew up for a radio station. It got to the point where every other radio station in the market started doing other alien things that day, because it's all people were talking about in Ottawa was Area 51 and me being there. And so we had our street team, our interns, go out on the streets with all these signs saying, honk if you're listening to Brady at Area 51, or honk if you believe, things like that. We had people dressed up in costumes. We had it just sort of took over the city for the day. And it was so cool to be a part of that. That was really like the big first stunt that I did. And now we're definitely going to be looking out for more things like that. But
how crazy do you think the stunts will get? Because they seem like they're getting there, man.
I mean, it all depends on what we think of. And like, I recently got my belly button pierced.
That's what I was literally just thinking about.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
we had.
Do you still have it pierced?
No, I had to take it out. I got infected.
Of course,
my body rejected it, and I think
it's very common for.
Yeah, I think so. I think that my piercer was saying, and a great guy was saying that it happens to a lot of people, and I think the bar might have been too small on it. Okay. Anyway, dude, I couldn't even sleep on my side. It was painful. It was so painful. But I loved it. I mean, and people eat that stuff up. I had an artist come in and do a nude portrait of me throughout the show. So throughout the 3 hours, we're constantly plugging. Oh yeah, we have a guy in here doing a nude portrait, and I was naked the whole show.
And do you have to do like ad libs while that happens? Like,
yeah, well, I'm just talking on air, right? And just sort of standing there while he's painting me, and supposed to be holding a bowl of fruit in front of my junk. It's just it's small things like that to get people talking. Our goal, honestly,
why do you think like Full Send is such a huge thing right now?
100%. Yeah, they do
a bunch of stunts.
Exactly. And you don't want to get too gimmicky either. You want the stunts to feel authentic and to feel like they have to be personality driven, right? They have to be revolving around who we are as characters, essentially.
So do you kind of have like a list of stunts for that week, and you get to choose?
Not necessarily, and it's all us. We do all our own content. There's really no one that like.
Okay.
We don't really.
Like,
we do our own thing, and we broadcast across Canada as well. We're syndicated into a bunch of different markets, which is super cool. But no one except for the four of us has any say really in what we do.
That's
which is
the
awesome.
best way to be like.
Yeah, but it's also like it's a huge. It's a compliment to us because they do give us that freedom, and I'm working with some really, really incredibly talented people as well, and I'm very fortunate to be in this position.
Yeah, when you have that creative freedum and you're like not worried about any like
for sure, and they've put a lot of faith in me too as the new guy to come into the show. It's not often that people are willing to share the mic the way that they have been as generous.
Was there other people with you like competing for that spot?
No, it sort of happened pretty organically. I came on initially as a producer, so my name wasn't in the show. That happened pretty recently. But I came on as a producer to sort of help wherever I could, to pipe in here and there, to be sort of that young millennial perspective, but to do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, answer the phones, play music behind them, whatever it was. And then it just sort of slowly over time turned into something bigger, and it's great. I have a great relationship with the people on the show, and it's so fun. It really is a team. Like, it's every single morning waking up and trying to, be the best show you can be. And when you suck, you feel bad, you feel guilty when you show up and you leave work that day and you're like, man, this morning was not my morning. But
how do you know that though? Like, sometimes
anytime, right? Anytime you're performing, you know when it's not your day. But and I remember asking Mahler, a guy on our show, about this really early on in my career, being like, hey, like, sometimes I feel like I have a bad show. How do you deal with that? And he's like, look, you're going to have a 5 on 10 sometimes. You're going to have a 9 on 10 sometimes. But what your job is, and I think this goes with everything in life, your job is to make sure that your average is at like an 8. And continuously try to push that average up higher and higher and higher. Don't stress the shitty days, and don't reward yourself too much for those high days.
So those shitty days, do you ever like question like what you're doing and the long-term goals of it and stuff like that? Or are you like, you just kind of know like this is what you want to do?
I think everybody does, right? I think everybody, whether you're a producer and you have a bad day in studio, or whether you're a rapper and you just can't write for shit one day. I think everybody has that experience. But again, it's the sum of your days, right? You're trying to just average out to be a better creator. And it's easier said than done, but you just always want to be pushing that average performance higher and higher and higher.
So as a radio host, you don't like really, you have a routine because it's like a set show time, but like other aspects of your life, do you go by routine, or is it more like? I
think I have to because I am waking up so goddamn fucking early.
What time does it start?
Our show starts at 6. We used to start at 5:30. It's really nice. Since COVID, we pushed it to 6, which is great.
Are you far from?
I'm about 15 minutes from the station. 12 minutes that early in the morning. But I'm still up, 4:45. My coworkers are up even earlier. They're up at 3:45. So you're constantly living in that, like, wake up early, do the show. My coworkers get to leave right after the show. I stick around and get a bunch of other stuff done. But then after I'm done work, I go home. I take a nap every day. Wake up, and then you sort of do a little bit more work or life, you live your life, but then you have to go to bed at a certain time, right? So there is a natural flow and a natural routine to my days.
Right, but it's not like very specific. It's just kind
exactly. And sometimes you cheat, man. I've gone into work guilty, very hungover, or
that's what I'm saying. Like, so do you like kind of prepare your weekends accordingly? Or?
Yeah, well, that's
I feel like it's the hardest thing to do.
Dude, man, let me tell you, Sundays can be very, very short because you can stay up really late on Saturday night and then wake up very late and then go to bed very, very early. So sometimes Saturdays only last like 7 or 8 hours because you partied a little too hard. Sundays, sorry.
It's just like hibernation.
Totally. And you just have to get on track with that, man. That's just life. And like sometimes you play guilty too. Sometimes you feel like shit when you wake up, but you got to turn it on as soon as the microphones turn on. You got to be, you can't be hungover.
So do you feel like you have like, so when the microphones turn on, obviously you have to like have like some sort of character to yourself, right? Do you ever feel like that like trickles into your day to day and you're like almost becoming that person sometimes? Wow,
what a question. I think, definitely, especially when you're like around listeners. And we are kind of characters, right? Like I think anybody who's broadcasting, anybody who's really in any creative industry or is putting themselves out there in that way, I think you are a little bit of a character. And if you're not, you should be the most interesting version of yourself possible for your audience. And that does sort of blend with your real life for sure. But
is there like a line you draw? Do you have like a line?
Yeah, I mean, what's really fortunate for me is I feel like I almost do live two lives because I spend so much time between Ottawa, where I live, but Montreal, where I come most weekends because I have my friends and family here, and it's only an hour and a half down the road, so it's not so bad. But I'm really able to sort of differentiate those two lives. I have my Brady life and my Brad life in a way, and so I am able to kind of divide those two things. But definitely, my job has become a huge part of who I am just as a person in general, as I think everybody's kind of does.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's like a part of your identity.
Exactly. Yeah. For better or for worse, really, too. Because you don't want to tie it too much to that, right? You don't want to
that's what I mean.
If you're having success, you don't want to become a douchebag because of your success. And if you're having a really rough go of it, you don't want to be some like miserable person because of that.
No, but I can't see you being a douchebag at all. Actually.
Thanks, man. Fingers crossed.
You just turned into a douchebag.
Yeah. Thanks. I can use some more booze, by the way. Let's go.
Oh, for sure. That's all it is, buddy. So where do you think the future of radio is headed?
It's a great question. I think radio is really at a crossroads right now where we have to figure out kind of what we are. And we're seeing a huge shift in radio. A lot of these smaller markets no longer have any radio personalities in them at all. A lot of it is syndicated, and we're fortunate to be in a position where our show is getting put into other markets, which is great for us, but a little concerning for the future of radio. But I think what will become apparent to radio stations is that content is going to be king. People don't necessarily listen to radio for contests. People listen to radio for A, music, and B, personalities. They want to identify with people on the radio. And I think we're probably going to see a big investment going into radio personalities and just personalities in general. Where we get those personalities from, I hope as an industry, we look beyond just the traditional means of radio schools and stuff like that. I hope we do look to social media and try to find these people that have personalities that we can mold into radio.
Crazy TikTok guys.
Sure, man. But if you're a TikTok, actually, there's great examples of that. This guy Brew in the US, you might have seen him on TikTok. He was in a small market. I can't remember what it was, but he blew up on TikTok. Now he's working in LA. He's syndicated across the US. He's crushing it, and all because of TikTok. They saw what he can do. He can build an audience, and that's a huge part of
obviously,
social.
Like he had some sort of like personality. You can't just only be doing dances.
No, of course not. Yeah. No, I don't think that's gonna work. And then and vice versa too. Like if you look at the other side, there's a lot of influencers that don't have any substance to them, right? They're very good at what they do online, but then you try to have a conversation with them, you try to engage them, and they don't have anything interesting to say. Right?
See, like those people have more brands supporting them, like clothing brands.
Sure.
That they could hold in their hands while they dance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And I think TikTok influencers are a little different than other platforms. It is very, comparably easy to get an audience on TikTok, whether that audience is monetizable. But if they whether that audience matters or not, like I don't know if people are as necessarily tied into TikTok influencers as they might be if you follow someone on Instagram, right?
Yeah. Well, Instagram for sure, and like now Instagram with their reels, like Instagram just does everything that exists.
Totally,
so, like,
they do it really, man. They do it well.
And as a user, like you want to stay on one app. You don't want to keep going into new apps.
Sure.
New apps. So like obviously, as like if you're like an Instagrammer that didn't start their like TikTok yet, and reels happen, like I don't think they ever started a TikTok.
Yeah, you probably.
And now with they have like a new option for Instagram where you could do like collaborative posts.
That's cool.
I could post something, have you as like a collaborator on it. So it'd show up on both their feeds.
Oh, that's huge.
So it'd be both their audiences, yeah.
Man, they're great with that. They really are. And I think one thing you don't get on TikTok as much is sort of real life. You don't really see, this person's family as much or what their day-to-day life is. Where you might see on Instagram a little bit more with stories than with regular posts. TikTok is more sort of...
TikTok actually started doing stories too, but like nobody uses them.
I didn't even know that, and I use TikTok all the time.
I feel like TikTok is mainly like that feed, that addicting feed.
That's it. TikTok has totally changed music too, and it's a great resource. And
that's like a whole nother argument.
Man, we could talk about that for days. I'm also the assistant music director at our radio station as well, so I do a ton of the music stuff, and I'm pretty engaged with the record labels on a daily basis as well. So
so like, what are your thoughts on that? Like,
so we've seen a huge change in how music works with TikTok, and especially early in the pandemic, it was like, okay, we got to be playing all these songs because they're huge songs, right? But then we realized, no, wait, the song's not huge. 6 seconds of the song is huge, and the rest of it is just crap. So what we started doing was, and I don't know if other stations are doing this, but we definitely are, is we'll take that 6 seconds, we'll put it into an ID, which is like the thing that plays in between the songs. So like the new hot 89.9, and then we might have like whatever that like 6 second hook is of that song, just so you hear it on our station. You identify that hook with our station being like the cool young station. That's cool, but we don't actually play the whole song because there's 2.5 minutes that no one cares about.
That's the really smart way.
It's about finding creative ways to tie yourself into what's happening and what's current and popular, but not necessarily, giving shit to your audience.
Yeah, and artists now are kind of basing their music off of that, and they're trying to have that 6 seconds within their song that
massive
to, or like,
for sure. And we're seeing song lengths have decreased by like a minute in the last since really the pandemic began, because of streaming. Lil Nas X changed the game with started making 2.5 minute songs, 2 minute songs, and now everything that comes out, even the big core artists, Ed Sheeran, he's dropping songs that are 2.5, 3 minutes. It's super rare to have a 3.5 minute, never mind a 4 minute song now is like we're in our music meetings like, oh my god, this song is 4 minutes, are you kidding me? When that used to be the norm, right? We used to only play 4 minute songs. So it's crazy how TikTok and streaming has really changed things quickly. But at the same time, you're probably going to play like a Maroon 5 track, at least in top 40 radio, over a flash in the pan song that, some of your audience might know, some of your audience might not. Core artists are still extremely valuable to mainstream media.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, if it's a good song, it's still going to be like a good
totally
song.
Yeah, but not every good song is a good radio song, right? There's a lot of like awesome EDM out there, which is great, but is it going to be, is it meant to be consumed by like a greater public, right? Like it might be something I'm listening to in my car, but is it something that like a larger population is going to be into, a larger demographic is going to be into? So you have to think about that as well. Not every good song is a good radio song.
Yeah. Also the demographic online versus the demographic.
Totally. Well, it can be more niche, right? It can be way more niche.
There's like a middle ground where they both kind of meet. Like they are kind of separate.
Totally. And there's some artists that are like great at sort of hitting both of those. Like I think of, in particular in Canada right now, Loud Luxury, Dubs. They're guys who are able to sort of cross over and live in both of those worlds, but that is pretty rare. So if there's someone out there making EDM music, and you want to crack the radio, consider what the radio is looking for. You're going to need a hook. You have to have a hook to be in mainstream radio. You just have to. It's going to have to be shorter. If we get sent tons of music. If you're going to send us a 6 minute song, I'm probably not even going to really listen to it because it's just, I'm not going to play a 6 minute. If Adele comes out with a 6 minute song, I might not. I'm looking for a radio edit of the song. So I'm not playing 6 minutes of anything. People's attention spans aren't that long.
For sure.
So you really
have, like it's not 6 minutes of like different things either. It's gonna be like a repetitive.
For sure. And you have to keep like your audience's attention. And so for anybody out there who might be trying to crack the radio, think of what radio stations are looking for. And the biggest thing I always tell artists is hook. Make sure your hook is banging.
Right, and like catchy and just
totally. And your production has to be tight too, because it like nothing sounds worse on the radio than like you're hearing like a Drake song and an Adele and then Ed Sheeran and then this local artist where the production's all wonky and it sounds hollow. Like it doesn't fit in with that.
Yeah, and like it's simple. Like all you got to do is just you could just, there's so many online options where you can just send out your song and get it.
Get it mastered.
And it's like it's worth the money.
Totally. And you see these stories of artists who pop off online. Like again, Lil Nas X, the dude bought Old Town Road. He bought that beat off YouTube. Like, and now look at him. He's an incredibly talented dude.
Yeah, headlining EDC, bro. Like,
he's unbelievable. And his new album's sick. It's so good. He's a marketing genius.
He's a marketing genius too.
He really is.
That's why I keep an eye on him. Like I love what he's doing. It's very interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And he's very talented. He's like it's really cool, and there's a lot of artists like that, and it's exciting to witness their career progressions for sure.
For sure. So what about like an up and coming somebody who wants to get into radio and like maybe in Montreal or like just in Canada? Like what would be your advice to them? And, like,
so Montreal,
should they even be like aiming towards radio? Or
Well, radio is still in a super viable career, but the thing with radio is cream rises to the top, and So I don't want to ever discourage anybody into getting into radio. I taught radio at a college last year. And I think it's awesome if you do want to get into it, jump into it, but know that if you're going to do it, do it. Like grind your ass off, find a radio station that you can intern at, go to school if you think that's the right choice for you, and work hard, ask questions to everybody, and take a lot of pride in your work. We find that there's a lot of young people that are entering the industry that want it, but don't want it bad enough. They're not willing to ask those questions. They're not willing to put in those hours. And it's really frustrating for us because sometimes we see the talents there and the effort isn't, and other times we see that the effort's there and the talent isn't, and we desperately want that young talent, and we'll try our best to find something for them, but it's a lot harder than you'd think to find that sort of combination of talent and of give a shit.
For sure,
and also you're probably gonna have to move too. You're not gonna. It's not necessarily to Ottawa, but to anywhere. I was very fortunate to be in Montreal and then go to Ottawa, so 2 majors. But a lot of people have to go to, Thunder Bay and Kirkland Lake, Ontario, and just for a couple of years, because you got to get those 10,000 hours, right? You got to practice your skill, and that's really the only way. So you have to have that passion for it, and if that scares you off, then I don't know, go find an insurance job.
I love it. Bro, thanks a lot for coming. It was a long time coming.
This was fun, man. This is fun, and congrats, dude. This is it's also sick. I listened to a bunch of your episodes. It sounds super polished. The set's beautiful. I'm super happy for you.
That means a lot. I appreciate it.
And you put me onto pizza, chicken wings, and for that, I'll always be in your debt. So thanks.
I'm your wing guy forever.
For sure. Get them breaded. Always get them breaded. Always it's incredible.
People are gonna hate on that.
Cheers, man.